Hey everybody, this is David. Thanks for joining me for another video. Thanks for subscribing. Yeah, all my subscribers out there, thank you so much for subscribing to the channel over this past year. It's been overwhelming response. I absolutely love going up and flying. I love making the videos, and I'm just glad that you're subscribing and enjoying those videos with me. This video is going to be very different from any other video I've made. There's not going to be any flying. There's not going to be any fun shenanigans with my family. In this video, I'm just going to talk to you about a topic that's important to a lot of people, especially the people that are looking to get into paramotoring. You know, quite often on social media, especially on the Facebook paramotoring page, you'll see a question come up pretty often, which is, where would you recommend I get training? Another question that comes up as well is, what do you think about free training at Flight Junkies? And when I see that question, it's usually followed up with a lot of derogatory comments. Well, I'm one of the few people that have actually trained at Flight Junkies and have also gone out and trained at another school as well. So I'm not going to go bashing any one of these schools out there. I'm not going to bash any trainers out there. What I am going to do is I'm going to talk to you about, in this video, is my own experience and what I witnessed when I went to train at Flight Junkies and when I went and trained at My PPG. In this video, I'm not going to talk to you about what I've heard from other people. Those aren't my own opinions and my own experience. All I can do is speak my own truth, and that's what I'm going to do here for you today. So hopefully this helps someone out there to make the right decision of where they should get their own training, whether that's at a school like Flight Junkies or a school like My PPG or at another school. Now at the end of this video, when you finish watching it, I hope you leave a comment. And your comments may agree with my opinions, they may disagree with my opinions. But if you went to Flight Junkies or if you went to My PPG, I'd hope that you would share your experience with that school. And if you went to another school or another trainer, share your experience in a comment as well. And hopefully a lot of people will get an idea of maybe what school would be best for them. Because I really fondly believe that there is a school and there is a trainer that is right for every person out there. You know, I think back to all the times, and it's been a lot of times that I've been asked about my training at Flight Junkies, and usually I'll skirt that question. I don't want to answer it. I'll just say to people, you know, you should go do your research out there. And really shame on me, because them asking me is their research. So I think in this forum, and I've really thought about how I wanted to answer this question, I think this is the best way to answer it, is to put this in this video. So I guess the best way to start this is to go back from when I first discovered powered paragliding. I remember it was back in April of 2018. My son Brennan showed me the infamous Tucker Got video flying to McDonald's. And that video, like many other people out there, that one video changed my life forever. I love this sport. There's so much that this sport has done for me, put me in contact with people I never would have met around the country, and it's really just changed my life. And if you're looking to get into powered paragliding, I'll tell you right now, it'll change your life too. Just wonderful things can come out of this sport. So I watched a lot of videos. I watched Kyle Lowe videos, a lot of Kyle Lowe videos, still do. Kyle Lowe's awesome. I watched a lot of Todd Felstad's video, a man with a plethora of knowledge, as I like to say. Who else? Woody, Gamertag, Mark Honeycutt, PPG Gorilla, Trike Flyer. So these are some of the people that I started watching when I was first learning about powered paragliding. But I really was attracted to the videos of Flight Junkies and Kurt Pfister. There's an appeal to that. First of all, you know, when he's talking about training, he's talking about training for no charge, free of charge, unlimited lifetime training anywhere in the 50 states. And that's definitely appealing when you've got a tight budget. Another thing I was intrigued with was just, I guess, the sales pitch, if you will. Or I felt it was a sales pitch, you know, where it's an us versus them mentality. You know, we're the last place that anybody else wanted you to see. They didn't want you to learn about Flight Junkies, he says in a lot of his videos. He talked about the comparison of the Fresh Breeze motors versus everybody else. In fact, he puts a challenge out there saying, bring yours in and compare it to mine, and we'll look at them side by side. But yet nobody took him up on his challenge. So clearly the Fresh Breeze, in my mind as a newbie into the sport, had to be the best. Had to be the best. So I took a little trip up to Flight Junkies up in Newton Falls, Ohio. So it was June 9th, and I know it was June 9th because there's a video that's still on the Flight Junkies YouTube page as of today. It may be taken down, but as of today, it's called Fresh Breeze Simonini 110 with weight shift. And I'm actually with my son in the thumbnail, so you can see me in there. when I was there on June 9th, this was June 9th of 2018, I put that Simonini on my back, and really, I don't even know how I stood up. It was so heavy on my shoulders. I'm not a very big guy, and there's a lot of big guys out there. I'm not going to say that other guys couldn't handle it, but for me at 150 pounds, it was pretty tough on me, and I don't even know how I could possibly run with that thing on my back. Kurt was easily able to convince me that I needed to get a trike because that was going to be too heavy for me. And so my mind was made up. I was going to get a monster because eventually I'd like to do a tandem, and I would get the fly pod trike. And that whole package with the wing cost me a little over $13,000. Now, before I decided to make that final choice, I went back home and I called a couple other schools too. Again, I'm doing my due diligence. I'm going to make sure that this place is the right place for me. And what I found out with other schools that I called was I'd have to wait 6 to 8 months for training. And I'd have to pay anywhere from $1,000 up to $3,500 for training. So, get trained now and fly now for free, or pay up to $3,500 and wait 6 to 8 months for that training. Seemed like a no-brainer to me. I think I know what I'm going to do. And so, it wasn't long, I decided to go and train at Flight Junkies. I got to tell you too, one of the other things that did appeal to me is that I could take this motor off the trike, I could take apart the trike, and I could get everything into my vehicle. That was pretty awesome. What I learned through experience later was it was a pain in my butt. Taking apart a trike, well, let me kind of put you through this here. I would take the trike, take it apart, stick it in the back of my SUV. The motor I would put on the back of a cargo rack and strap it down. And I would drive out to the field, take it all off, put it all together. Fly, land, take it all apart, put it all back in the car, back on the rack, and then when I got home, take it all off the rack, take it out of the car, put it away in my garage. That takes a lot of time, and it's whereas you don't need a cargo trailer, it kind of is frustrating because it takes away from the whole fun experience. I ended up down the road buying a 6x10 foot cargo trailer, which after tax and everything, I think cost me about $3,300. So here I am. It's September 9th, 2018. I am on my way to Flight Junkies. I get there. I'm super excited. Meet a guy named Craig Powers. He has a YouTube channel called 13 Eagles. You can take a look at his YouTube channel. I'll put a link on the top right hand of your corner right there. And you can take a look at some of his videos that he has as well. Craig is my training partner. And we've been in touch ever since, kind of just sharing each other's experience. And it's been great to have Craig in my life since meeting him at Flight Junkies. First night we're there, it's September 9th, and both of our equipment is there. So we put all that stuff together with Kurt. He was great helping us put it together. That night we just kind of started up our motors, drove our trikes around the field a little bit. That was pretty much it for the evening. After that, Craig and his wife Sue, myself, Kurt and his fiancee Paula, we went to Olive Garden for dinner, and Kurt was gracious enough to pay for dinner, talk to us a little bit about his own personal life, his background. We had a nice night. Next day, September 10th, a little bit windy that morning, so first thing that Kurt had Craig and I do was go inside of his clubhouse, I think is what he calls it. It's like a converted barn. He made it look really, really nice, and he lives upstairs in the clubhouse, I guess half the year when he's not down in Florida. So up in the clubhouse there was a room that we went into, and we watched a video. And this video really surprised both Craig and I. Now, going into this, as I found out later, Craig was just as adamant about learning everything about how to fly from Kurt's videos as I was. So both of us really, without knowing each other, really just watched these videos, in fact, memorized these videos so we could get in and get off the ground as quick as possible. And mind you, that was my goal, to get off the ground and fly. That was my number one goal, get off the ground and fly. And as an added bonus, I'm not paying for training, so that was fantastic. So we go and we watch this video, and to my surprise, it was a video called Risk vs. Reward, which is produced by the USPPA. The USPPA, the United States Powered Paragliding Association, which is ran by Jeff Goyne. In a lot of Kurt's videos, he talks very negatively about the USPPA and Jeff Goyne, and this is why I was really surprised that he was having us watch, of all videos, this video by the USPPA. Very strange, I thought. After that, we spent probably 45 minutes sitting downstairs in the family room area when you first walk into the clubhouse at a table, just kind of reviewing everything that we learned on his videos. And I hate to say it, but that was really the extent of our ground training or classroom training. So that afternoon, I spent putting together a cargo trailer just to secure my motor down to it with a couple pieces of wood, whatever. And Kurt was gone with Paula for pretty much all afternoon. They went shopping. And so when I was done doing my little work with my cargo trailer, my trailer rack, I started laying out my wing, practiced taking it out of the bag, laying it out, setting it up to the trike, and then taking it apart and putting it back away. A guy named Tim Garvey was there. But I met Tim for the first time, and he actually came over and said, "Hey man, would you like me to help teach you how to kite your wing?" That was the only kite training that I got when I was out at Flight Junkies. So about 3:30, 4 o'clock, Kurt comes back to the training facility. We had been there all day, Craig and myself, and at that point we took the trikes over and hung them from the lines to make sure that we had the right connection points for our weight on the trike. And that was really pretty much it for that day. Had dinner at the clubhouse, and it was a little too windy to try to fly that day. So that was going to have to wait till the next morning, September 11th. September 11th rolls around, and father and son, we remember, came to the field. Now, they had trained with Kurt about 3 months ago, never flew. They came out, Kurt put them ahead of us, and they took off, landed, and then they took off, and they were out of there. I flew first between Craig and I. Wasn't the greatest experience as I had hoped it to be. I remember Kurt was pretty loud with me in my headset. He had told me to put dead weight on my arms and pull down on the brakes. He never had discussed with me how much pressure dead weight really meant, so I was going back and forth and wobbling quite a bit. I really wish my first flight would have been a better experience. Nonetheless, I was flying, and it was amazing, and I loved every moment of it. Craig took off, stud as he is. He made a great first flight, landed perfectly. I was Flight Junkie 1199. Craig was Flight Junkie 1200. So before I left that day, I made 2 other flights. I gotta say, I think what bothered me is that I anticipated my training to be very much like if I were taking a class somewhere, where I would go into a school or class or training facility, sit down with the facilitator, go over a syllabus, know what I was going to be covering, make sure we were covering everything else. It didn't feel like that. It didn't feel very structured at all. And that's not to say that other people get trained different things or in different ways, but if there's other things that were being trained, they were not covered with us, with Craig and myself. And I think what really bothered me the most was time. There was a lot of downtime, a lot of waiting time. We would get up, wait for Kurt to come out. If sunrise, let's say, was at 6 o'clock, Kurt might not come out at 6:45 to work with us. So there was a lot of time where we could have been flying, but it never happened. Kurt also talks about in his videos how he's always going to give you his most precious commodity, which is his time. And I agree, that is everybody's most precious commodity, but it didn't feel like the same respect of time was being given back to us. Quite constantly, while we were trying to ask questions or work with Kurt, his phone would be ringing. You can call Kurt anywhere from 8 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week, and it's true, he really does answer it. I guess what the problem with that is that if you're trying to be trained and you're getting interrupted, that whole train of thought is now gone, and you really didn't get the information you really needed. Bottom line, though, is, and this is good news, I got out of Flight Junkies exactly what I wanted. I was able to fly, and I didn't have to pay much for training. And maybe that's your goals, is you want to just fly, and you don't want to pay anything for training. And if that's the case, Flight Junkies might be the place for you. This past summer in 2019, my son was dying to fly as well. And so what I decided to do was to train him myself to everything except for getting off the ground. What he needed to learn, what I learned from Flight Junkies. Now, I didn't feel so comfortable being on comms with my own son and I thought the better thing would do would be to take my son Brennan up to Kurt and have him launch him, and that's exactly what I did. So July 7th, my son Brennan did make his first flight. We went up the night before. We chose not to stay in the bunkhouse. Oh, yeah, the bunkhouse. Let me tell you about the bunkhouse that he has there. Kurt did a great job taking a container, a shipping container, and making it sort of livable. Carpet was in there, a little refrigerator, some fans, three different bunk beds. So there's a place for you to stay, and he has a little patio door as well. So there's a place for you to stay if you want to come up there. I was actually, I think, the third person back in September of 2018 to stay in the bunkhouse, and it wasn't as wonderful as I hoped. There were bugs that did get in there, whether there's little holes in the container itself, but they got in there and they pretty much kept me up all night. In fact, it did rain a little bit through one of the nights too, so that rain on that metal container did wake me up as well. So the facilities, as far as getting a shower, there's an outdoor shower. If you know, I like to have privacy inside. Maybe I'm just a good old city boy, but so showering outside, if that's not your thing, that might not be a good thing for you either. But back to Brennan. Yes, he did go up with me on June 6th, and we weren't able to fly that night. Kurt spent all of 30 minutes just going over what he knew and made sure that Brennan had everything that he felt he needed to know to go fly. It was a little too windy that evening. The next morning, Brennan did make that flight. What I do remember about being there that day, though, because we did go up in the morning, spent the day there. It was downtime the entire day. In fact, Kurt was gone pretty much all the day. There was a couple other guys there, too. One of them, I believe his name was Jack. He had been there for a whole month trying to get his training in. And a couple other guys as well. And I remember asking all these guys, hey, have you guys gotten a syllabus? Because I didn't get a syllabus when I was here. And they said, nope, didn't get a syllabus. I said, you guys learn about weather? No. So did you learn about rotor off trees or thermals or different types of clouds, things like that? And all of them said no. I said, what about motor maintenance? Anybody get any training on motor maintenance? Because maybe you got something that I didn't. And they all said no. So this is in front of my son Brennan that we're hearing that, man, they pretty much got the same training as I did. So after I left Flight Junkies 2 weeks later, I decided I'm going to go train at Fly My PPG to learn how to foot launch. I met Mike Cotter back in April. He came down to Cincinnati, just passing through town, flew with a bunch of the guys here, and it was interesting because I got out to the field probably about 10 o'clock to go fly. It was a cold morning, a lot of, well, maybe not as much cloud coverage as I thought, and here I am, I'm warming up my motor, and Mike, who I just met for the first time, said, hey man, you plan on going flying? And I said, yeah, I'm going to go fly. You going to go fly? He goes, no, I think I'm done flying. He goes, you worried about, I don't know, the bumpiness up there? I said, I don't think so. I mean, it's pretty cold on the ground, so I think if the ground is cold, it shouldn't be thermaling. He goes, that's not exactly right. I mean, the ground is warming up, and those thermals are popping up, but you do what you want to do. I said, hey, man, I don't know what I don't know. So if you know better and you feel like I'm going to put myself in danger, stop me now. And he said, listen, let's just sit down and talk. So right there in that conversation, Mike and I developed a real good mentoring relationship, where he was mentoring me on things that I didn't know. And so this was part of the reason why I decided to go to Fly My PPG for training. So my training was a little bit different than most people who go up to Fly My PPG. This is a place where you go, and the cost isn't free. It's $3,000. There is another option. They do have a house that you can stay at right at the facilities, and for that, I believe it's another $500 just to stay at the facilities, which you might be doing with camping, or you might you could go camping on the grounds if you want to. You could find a hotel, but I'm not sure if there's many hotels close to St. John, Michigan. So that house was a great facility and right on the grounds, and wasn't very expensive either when you consider what the cost of a hotel would be. The training is for 8 days, and I'm going to go through the syllabus that Mike gave me. But for me, because I had been flying over a year now, and I had over 70 flights under my belt, I didn't need to go through everything and learn everything from scratch. So Mike and I went through the syllabus, and on the very first night that I got there, and said, okay, let's go through everything. Make sure you know everything that you're going to need to know as if you were going through an 8-day training session with us here at Fly My PPG. So this is the Fly My PPG training syllabus that I received, that every student receives when they go up to Fly My PPG. I'm going to read through this here too. And as I go through this, just so you can compare, this is, again, everything that a student that goes through Fly My PPG and is a US PPA certified school. This is everything that every student goes through and has to date and initial that they did. Okay? Now, with some of this, as I kind of compare this to my experience at Flight Junkies, I'm going to tell you what I did at Flight Junkies if I did it. Okay? So here we go. Unpacking and laying out the glider. Probably went through that at Flight Junkies. Wind sight selection. Glider anatomy. Learning about the glider. Fundamentals of effective launch. Harness procedure. How to put yourself into a harness. Forward preparation and reverse preparation for inflating your wing. Fundamentals of control. Clip-in practice. Well, I guess in all fairness, I do put a seatbelt on my fly pod, so I'm sure Kurt showed me how to put a seatbelt on. Ground handling. Forward inflation practice. Reverse inflation practice. Next section, regulations, law, and public perception class. Another class. Public perception, so talking about what the public sees when they see us flying. Overarching themes. FAR 103. Local codes and ordinances, public and private airports, best practices. Next section was a homework. Okay. After that, the next section was your first flight. So these are things about safety and terminology that you need to know. Proper safety, starting procedures, use of kill switch. Now some of these, again, I guess Kurt probably did go through with me, but you get the idea. Launching, flight agenda, flight pattern, flight techniques, verbal instructor commands, loss of communication procedures, motor simulator briefing, thrust, posture exercise briefing. I'm just going to skip through a couple of these here. Motor simulator with the engine off, motor simulator with the engine on, thrust procedures, how to lean back when you're taking off, ground handling practice with a throttle simulator. Then they do towing exercises. So at Fly My PPG, you'll actually be towed up in the air and practice flying without even a motor on your back. You learn about airspace, VFR sectional charts, controlled airspaces, A, B, C, D, E, and E surface areas. Uncontrolled airspace, such as Class G. So you're learning all this in your class. Airspace 2 class. So there's an Airspace 1 and there's an Airspace 2. You learn about special use airspace, temporary flight restrictions, what are those? Military training routes, wildlife areas, and areas of critical infrastructure. So those right there were Module 1 and 2. Module 3, you do taxi practice and solo flight. Now, when you're doing taxiing practice and solo flights, they're always videotaping you. So class doesn't end at 6 o'clock. Class continues to go on after dinner. You're constantly watching everybody in your class videos of each other as you're taking off, landing, practicing, kiting, things like that. So you can constantly be learning from each other, from videos of each other as it's happening right there on the spot. You can see what you're doing and be able to correct yourself by watching yourself in a video. And the next thing here is Introduction to Paramotor Maintenance class. There's a maintenance class. Common tools that you use, resources, two-stroke motor operating principles, motor anatomy, spark plug analysis, fuel and oil, pre-flight and post-flight inspections, basic maintenance procedures. The next area, weather class, ideal conditions, atmospheric principles, atmospheric stability and instability, daily thermic cycle, thunderstorms, downdrafts, and microbursts, clouds, weather phenomenon, front pressure systems, forecast products. Now guys, I know I'm going through a lot of information here, but there's a lot of information here. Okay? Wing design, basic aerodynamics, paragliding principles, trimmers, reflex and speed bar, how is it made, classifications and rating systems, glider selection, glider technology. See, as I'm going through all this and as I'm reading this here to you, glider care, inspection, I'm thinking about all the things I didn't learn when I went to Flight Junkies that I had to learn when I left Flight Junkies. The human factor, this is now safety class, module 4. The human factor, the anatomy of a mistake, hazardous attitudes, the traps, the Dunham-Kruger effect, the Boyd-OODA loop, physical and mental margins. So there's a lot of other stuff here too, a list of terminology, things that you need to know. There's a lot to it. It's not just go in, learn how to get into the equipment and go fly. There's a lot that you will learn that you can't just learn in a couple days of training, or certainly in the flyable hours, right after sunrise and right before sunset. So there's a big difference there. So the question for you is it worth the money? Is it worth the money to pay $3,000 or $3,500 or $1,000 or whatever it is to learn about all this information that you really need to know before you become a powered paragliding pilot? Or is it okay to just go up in the air, learn how to go up in the air, fly, come down, and not learn about everything else and pay nothing for it? And I can't answer that question. That question is really up to you, and how are you as an individual and what you need. I would tell you that safety is extremely important to me. It's important to the people that fly around me. It's important to the people that are living in the homes and the areas, or driving down somewhere in the vicinity below where I'm flying. So I want to make sure I'm the safest pilot I can possibly be, know everything I need to know about motor maintenance so that I'm not falling apart while I'm flying, know everything about weather, or as much as I possibly can. And believe me, I'm not there yet where I want to be. It is a continuous learning process. And the day that you stop learning is the day that you should stop flying. So the days that I was out at Fly My PPG, as I said, Mike and I went through the syllabus. He went through everything that I didn't know, or that I had questions on, very, very thoroughly. The second morning I was there, we kited. In the morning and in the evening I was able to make my first launch. Made several launches while I was there. When the wind got too windy, we even kited, and we just kept watching videos over and over again to keep continuously learning. And actually, I'm going to put another link up here in the top right corner so you can see the first video of when I was out at Fly My PPG. There's actually 3 videos, so I invite you to watch all 3 of them so that you can see the experience that I had while I was out there. So guys, there it is. I was pretty straightforward with you, told you about my experiences. I didn't talk about anybody else's experience, but I would hope that anybody watching this video, as I said earlier, will leave a comment down below about what your experience was, whether you went to one of these 2 schools, or if you went to another school, what you got out of the school. Was it worth your time and your money to be there and to learn what you learned? Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody's feedback. Thank you so much for watching, and blue skies to you guys.